Hi, good morning. I'm Keng Hui. Victory's objective is to give SME in Singapore a library of resources which they can download for free and to share or train their staff. We want to be a go-to place for video resources where one wants to know in layman terms how can we do this and what are the things that we need to take care of. Additionally, we want to create step-by-step guides and checklists that one can use as a guide to create their own fit-for-purpose manuals, policies, and SOPs. Today, we are talking about BCM, Business Continuity Management. The learning objectives are to develop a good understanding of what is BCM and pandemic management, deep dive into the steps to create an effective BCM and pandemic management plans, together with application-based hands-on exercises on how various types of organizations can implement a successful framework. Right, what is BCM? BCM is about how you manage your business when it's not business as usual. Every company must have a BCM because it gives you a guide on, have I gone through all the scenarios that affect business, and how do we respond when disaster strikes? What if an organization loses its key man? And in today's context, a pandemic. In today's sharing, the BCM will be covered by myself, and for pandemic, it will be covered by my partner, Michael. In a bank, during an IT failure, it sees significant customer inconvenience, and the impact is financial and reputational damage to the bank. For SGX, it causes trading disruption. During SARS, the multi-level impact to the economy, especially to hotels, restaurants, retail, and transport. And also, COVID-19. How do you ensure that your business carry on? As a general guide or framework, ISO 22301 is the standard for BCM. In layman terms, you have your senior management, BCM team, BCP, Business Continuity Plan, and Disaster Recovery. Test your plans. Make sure that the plan works and gets updated regularly because condition changes. Lastly, ensure your supply chain resilient. ISO 22301 depicts BCM with the following graph. When an incident happens, then of course your operating effectiveness drops. If the organization has a safety net in place, then you'll be caught by the safety net and you operate in the environment for a while before you recover. If you don't have a plan, then you will drop all the way down to an even lower level and you will take a longer time to operate and to recover back to normal. And in a worst case position, you can even put you out of business. In BCM, there are many terminologies. I've listed out 5 terminologies that everyone should know. Business continuity plan, business impact analysis, recovery time objective RTO. How soon you can recover to your minimum performance level, and recovery point objective. How much downtime and data loss you can tolerate. Say, your business is e-commerce. Your data is refreshed every hour. So, the last time that you refresh your data is 1 hour ago. So, I can only withstand 1 hour downtime before the next recovery. BCM, at the end of the day, is about risk management. So, we will follow the same approach as the risk management framework. Just like risk management, we start with tone from the top. People at the top should own it and make sure that they are serious about it. With the proper tone from the top, support and resources, go about identifying the risk and set the risk appetite statement at the board level to make sure that we have defined appetite. Based on the appetite, allocate your resources. When you have a low appetite, dedicate more resources to that risk to make sure that if it happens, you are in a position to cope with it. Next, we put together a team. The chair of the BCM committee will be a senior member of the management team. Key members will include the Chief Information Security Officer, CISO, your IT and DR manager, the Health and Safety Officer, HR manager, Head of Operations, and the Head of Facility Management. They will formulate the BCP and DR plans. The BCM committee may appoint other members to form the crisis management team who will execute the BCP and DR plans. In terms of reporting from a bottom-up perspective, you have a Health and Safety Committee which reports to the BCM, which is on a wider level. and then the BCM committee will be responsible for reporting to the management. The third step is to write out about what should be in the BCP and the DR plan. The objective of the BCP is to minimize the critical decisions to be made in a time of crisis and to facilitate the timely recovery of the company's critical business function. The starting point of the BCP plan is threat identification and invocation. Identify the threats or risks that can bring about disasters by doing risk analysis covering threats to business continuity. We've listed 5 common threats to the activities that the organization does. The most relevant at the moment is, of course, pandemic. The Health and Safety Officer should monitor the Health Ministry alerts and based on the alerts to recommend to the BCM and board when to invoke business continuity plans. During the unavailability of your IT network outages, cyber attacks, the server goes down, the CISO and IT manager has to monitor when is the uptime, downtime, the performance, etc., and decide when to recommend to BCM to activate BCP. For example, network outage is severe and it affects half your company and it's going to take you 5 hours to recover. Then you should probably activate a plan and everybody goes offsite. Next, you have threat to the physical building and equipment, a natural disaster or a man-made one. For example, a fire, a terrorist attack, or chemical warfare is also a threat because it is very easy to hit. Last year, in public spaces like religious grounds, the Home Affairs called for the committee members to discuss what happens in a fire, in a chemical, or in a biohazard crisis. Equipment failure in a plant. The plant goes down and it cannot be recovered in the next 3 days and you need a major overhaul. The head of facility management or operations has to invoke the BCP. During infrastructure outages like power, utility, and water, the head of facility management or operations should look after it. And during a supply chain disruption or outsourced service provider goes down, the respective function should own it. Having identified the threats, you conduct your risk assessment and the impact your business and customers will have. Determine the gross risk. What is the risk before the controls? What controls you have in place to manage this threat or this risk? What is the net risk? And you plot it out in a risk heat map. The next section in the BCP should talk about planning for an alternative work site. For example, the main office is where you commonly work from. So, during an event or crisis, where do you go? Do you plan for an alternate workplace? Or you split up the workforce to avoid concentration risks? These days, you can also have telecommuting or work from home arrangements. In planning for an alternate work arrangement, we have 3 terminologies: cold site, warm site, and hot site. It is a cost-benefit analysis. You pay more, the site is guaranteed, and you can start almost instantly. If you don't pay or you choose to pay less, you may have to suffer the inconvenience of a longer recovery time when it's full house or when it's not possible to accommodate you. Currently, working from home is another possibility. And again, it is subject to IT connectivity and also the role. People who work on machines or in plants and in customer service, they need to be physically present. You can't do it from home. All the critical business functions should be identified. What do you need as a bare minimum to operate? For example, the finance department will at least need the Oracle payroll system and the ledger to post entries. This is the minimum performance that you need. When an incident happens, make sure that you recover all these things first so you can perform to bare minimum standard. RTO, recovery time objective, is how long it takes for you to recover. For example, you can withstand 4 hours. RPO, recovery point objective, is how much data you can lose. You need your yesterday closing balance, which means you can only lose maximum 1 day worth of data. This is what RPO is. Any residual risk that you cannot manage should be documented. Having identified your critical business functions, you will then need to perform a BIA, Business Impact Analysis. A BIA is useful in identifying the recovery priorities, recovery resource requirements, recovery strategies, and critical staff. We can adopt the following process to do a BIA. Identify all the functions in the organization. Identify the processes within each function. Assess the impact if the process is disrupted due to a crisis or incident. Assess the recovery time objective. Assess the recovery point objective for each of the process. The BIA should be prepared by the BCM rep of that function, reviewed by the BCM manager, and approved by the head of the function. This will ensure proper accountability. Start by preparing a list of all the staff, including any contractors, freelancers, and their work location. Next, document down each of the processes within that function. Include any upstream or downstream dependencies. Who is dependent on your services and goods, and who you rely on to create your service and goods. Conduct the BIA for each of the critical functions based on the identified impact, such as a financial loss, reputation loss, etc. The impact should be measured against a time horizon. If the process is interrupted for 1 hour, 1 day, or 1 month. In general, the longer the time of disruption, the higher the impact. For each process, you end up with a criticality score. Rank the scores for all critical functions and prioritize which is the most important processes within your function. Next, you need to think about when do you actually invoke your crisis management team. Anyone can pull the plug. If an incident happens, you should tell the BCM manager, and the BCM manager, together the relevant people, shall assess the situation and decide if it's a crisis or not. If it is a crisis, then they should activate the crisis management team to execute your BCP and DR plans. But if nothing serious enough, then you continue to monitor. DR is about disaster recovery. It's mainly your policies and procedures, as well as plans for recovering critical functions. The disaster recovery process is overseen by key business stakeholders. The stakeholders are typically C-level members of the company. The disaster recovery team is comprised of members from each department of the company and is fully capable to recover your processes. Here, we see examples of an IT recovery strategy. When your data center is disrupted, you can activate your backup data center, your core functions are rerouted to the backup, and you continue to operate at a lower level till full services are restored. DR procedures can be broken down into 3 phases: response, resumption, and restoration. The response, resumption, and restoration phases are managed in parallel with any corresponding business continuity recovery procedures summarized in the BCP. Recovery time objective. How do you write recovery time for an infrastructure? As an example, my local area network. If I need 7 to 10 days estimated recovery goal, if it takes too long, then management has to decide whether they should cut it down further. How long does my wide area network takes to recover? My application recovery time, and you should prioritize accordingly. Those that are critical functions should be prioritized first and should have shorter time to recovery. Recovery point objective. How much data can you stand to lose depends on the criticality of the function, and every function will design how much RPO you need. Having put together your plan, you need to train and simulate the various scenarios. Training and simulation is necessary to ensure that the business continuity planning process remains viable through the incorporation of the BIA and risk assessment into an enterprise-wide BCP and testing programs. The more realistic the training, the more prepared the organization will be. The senior management team, together with the crisis management team, comes together to test alternate websites, system failure. Say, I have 2 servers, I have 2 databases. My first network goes down, the other network should ultimately come up. It's akin to UPS uninterrupted power supply. I cut off one line, the other should automatically go up. Make sure that you test it and it actually works. Also, testing or working from home. Get people to bring their laptop home for IT connectivity, and they can access the VPN and the company proprietary software. Now, you have done all your homework, but have your suppliers, you need to consider your supply chain resilience. Understand who are your critical key suppliers. Conduct due diligence. Ask them what are their BCP. Because if they don't have BCP, when they have a crisis, you cannot operate. So you must make sure that their BCP is in sync with yours, and it will be ideal if you can be included as part of their BCP testing. Right, that is all we have for BCM today. Next, we shall go on to the flavor of the month, pandemic management, and Michael will take over from here. Thank you.